Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Today's topic is going to be, we're going to be talking about the many nations that are preparing for World War III in many different ways. So we got to start with the main thing, and that's from the quote from Dmitri Duduman that says, it, meaning the fall of America, will start with an internal revolution in America started by the communists. Some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government will be busy with internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, and two other countries, which you couldn't remember, will attack and defeat America. And we're also going to jump down to the other one that says, God will raise up China, Japan, many other nations. They'll go against the Russians, and they'll defeat the Russians. Now, I'm going to do this in reverse. I'm going to give you my points that I'm trying to make in advance, and then I'm going to back up those points so that you can see just how the nations and America is now preparing for World War III. My points that I'm trying to make are, the internal revolution has started. People are now fighting against each other and, in small pockets, fighting against the government. That's not fully fulfilled, but it is in progress. Russia is now growing stronger and more angry. Cuba is just as much an enemy today as ever and would love to participate in an attack on America to take America down. Nicaragua and Central America are not friends, but at this point, they're not mortal enemies yet either. So not everything is in place. Mexico has always been jealous of America and still wants their land back that America took from them many years ago, and wants it to be returned. And Mexico is growing more and more angry toward America. And one day, prophecy says, that she would be happy to participate in an attack on America. Mexico has also been participating with our enemies now for years to bring America down and wants to be the next world leader in finances, especially on the North American continent. China wants the wealth of America and openly states she wants to dominate the world. NATO is a jealous friend, happy to take our money today, but one day will come to our aid when attacked. All right, let's get started. First of all, let's talk about the internal revolution, which says some of the people are going to start fighting against the government. Are people fighting against the government? Has the internal revolution started? Well, we see that the Democrats refuse to cooperate with Trump these days, and then Trump turns around and beats on the Democrats with his tweets. Protests are in our streets. Anger is in our homes. Fights are in our streets and our city halls. People disagree today about gun rights, whether you should have those guns or whether you should not have the guns. When evil takes our guns, our heads will follow shortly. Today we fight about immigration. Some want open borders, some want strong borders. The state government is fighting the federal government over immigration, borders, and use of marijuana. Sanctuary states want open borders. Capitalistic type states want strong borders. Some states wanted marijuana use legalized in their state, and we let the camel stick his head in the tent, and now the body has followed. Now some states want to see nationwide marijuana legalized. Some states want abortion kept legal. Others want it illegal from day one. The military allowed the LGBT stuff into the military. Now they want it nationwide. Some cities and states want LGBT bathroom rights in schools and businesses and public bathrooms. Senator Nunes says the documents show that there was no intelligence in backing up the forming of the Mueller-Russia probe. In other words, it was a total fabrication. The FBI and the DOJ leadership is overtly anti-Trump. Now let's talk about how they're starting to fight against the government. Trump is touting his low unemployment and more jobs and lower taxes. But on the quiet side, he's also beginning to require some people receiving welfare to go to work. Terry Bennett said, or was told by the angel Gabriel, that when the free government checks stop from the government, that's when the trouble will begin in America. Prophet Leslie was told that World War III starts when Israel is attacked. America sends troops to help. Now let's talk about that more specifically. I've covered this many times, and I think that this is a major part of our ministry, a major message to America. Because as Dimitri was told, the fall of America would start with an internal revolution. These are the 7 things that tell us, this tells us just how close it might be, and everybody wants to know how close. April 15, 2002, Prophet Leslie Johnson was given a dream. Now, this is the summary points of the dream. She was told that Arafat would go into the hospital. Well, April 15, 2002, that was a very big statement because at the time, Arafat was not even allowed to go outside of his compound. So to put that on the radio and the internet, send that out to all of our best supporters, that Arafat's going to die in the hospital, that's a very big statement. Yet, 11/11/04 at 3:30 a.m., he died in a hospital in Israel just as she was told. Now, point being, in that there's 6 points to this particular prophecy, and the first point has already come to pass. That's confirmation. We better listen to the next points. Israel will give the Palestinians a state. The Palestinian state will be a temporary measure to allow the Israelis time to strengthen the military. Then oil will be discovered in Israel, and I'll say massive amounts of oil. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say, well, the Bible says actually, that it's going to be at least twice the amount of oil that was given to the Arabs. Oil will make the Jews willing to fight for their land. Israel and America will go against most of the rest of the Arab world. In other words, that's probably World War III, although that's not what she was told. Then, January 22 of 2006, she was actually given 7 things to look for prior to the fall of America. She said, in the night, I heard the audible voice of God speak the words, Israel refuses to help America. Now, I've had a lot of people say, can you give us those headlines in the exact order that she was giving them? So that's what I'm going to do today. This is the exact order that they came to her. She says, then she heard the following headlines in her heart. This was the order in which I heard them, but not necessarily the order in which they will occur. 1, Israel refuses help to America. By the way, we can't remember whether that's help to America or help to America. Omer ushers in Palestinian state. Catastrophe hits America. One of America's greatest times of need. Israel is attacked. America sends troops, which is probably the start of World War III, though that's not what she was told. Chaos reigns as Americans protest help to Israel. Then she heard my voice quoting Dimitri Duduman, the fall of America will start with an internal revolution. Now let's talk about Russia. What is Russia doing to fulfill the prophecy about her? Well, America, as you recall, hit Russia with several sanctions making the bear angry. Then the Democrats continued to get angry in the Russian bear by Mueller indicting some of the Russians in the Russia probe. Democrats are suing the RNC, the Republican National Convention, or what is that RNC? Republican National, the RNC, what I forget what that is. WikiLeaks and Russia, basically spitting on Russia. The Democrats are provoking Trump to speak and act against Russia by saying Trump loves Russia. Russia threatened America not to cross certain red lines in the Syrian attack. That's kind of a threat of war. In other words, Russia's kind of saying, we're kind of close to war right now. You cross one of these lines and we're going to go to war. Russia's Putin predicted global chaos if the West hit Syria again, and we hit Syria again. Reports say that Russia has refused to allow inspection of the Duma, Syria city, reported area where the chemical attack took place. I still don't think there was a chemical attack. I haven't seen anybody foaming from the mouth. I haven't seen stacks of 40 bodies. I haven't seen any evidence, video evidence on TV that there was a chemical attack anyplace. I think it's a setup. Reported Syrian use of chemical weapons. Trump has threatened to cancel the Iran nuclear deal, which would reportedly allow Iran to build up, by the way, with the help of Russia, nuclear weapons, which they will surely use against Israel and America in World War III. The Russian state media shares video of what a nuclear explosion near the White House might look like. That's right, they actually put out a video showing what it might look like if a nuclear explosion were to hit the White House. Well, let's put it a shoe on the other foot. What would Russia think if America were to put out a video showing what it might look like if a nuclear weapon were to hit the Kremlin? How would they take that? So how are we to take it in reverse? It's Russia threatening us. This is another headline. Russian TV mockingly prepares for war with the United States, instructing citizens to buy water and gas masks. Let's put the shoe on the other foot again. What would Russia think if the American government came out and openly said everybody got to buy a bunch of food and water and get ready for a war? How would they take that? So again, how are we to take that? I'm telling you that Russia is preparing for war. Now let's talk about Cuba. As you recall, just before Obama left office, he went down to Cuba and attempted to kiss and make up with Cuba. Removed a lot of their restrictions. Cuba at first, when he arrived, didn't even roll the stairway out for Obama to deplane. Then Castro did not go to the airport to greet Obama. It's kind of telling us that Cuba is still really mad at us. When he goes down there and he lists the restrictions, they're still not friendly. Then they still turned around, and Trump replaced most of these restrictions on them. But America then opened an embassy in Cuba. And Cuba, I mean, we really reached a hand out to be nice to Cuba. But what did Cuba do? They slapped us again. They reportedly hit some of the American diplomats with sonic weapons. Some of them have had some really severe reactions to these sonic weapons, whatever they might be. We don't even know what they were. But the point is, Cuba, would they go to war with America? In a heartbeat. Now let's talk about Nicaragua and Central America. As you recall, Trump angers Central Mexico by turning back their caravan refugees. Remember, that just happened here the last few weeks. Well, I don't think Nicaragua or Central America are our friends, though I don't think they're angry enough to go to war with us yet. That may be a good sign. Now let's talk about Mexico. Well, as you recall, Trump has angered Mexico with the build the wall. Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Also, possible tariffs, threatening to pull out of NAFTA. Negotiations are in progress trying to keep NAFTA. We'll see how that goes. Trump signed a proclamation sending the National Guard to the Mexico border, the southern border. And, of course, we have the National Guard down on the border. They're trying to keep this caravan, as I speak, from coming into America. Trump says he's not going to let them into America. Then Trump threatened Mexico, if they didn't stop the immigrant caravan, that he might pull out of NAFTA. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of anger, a lot of fighting. There's not the peace with our enemies. Bible says, God says that if we're a righteous nation, that he will give us peace with our enemies. We don't not only have peace with our neighbors, we don't have peace within. There's arguments and fussing and fighting every place, and that's one of my points today. Now let's talk about the phrase started by the communists. Now, I believe this is primarily referred to, but not only referring to, the MSM. That's what I'm referring to it as, MSM, meaning the mainstream media. So when I say MSM, I'm referring to the mainstream media. We know that the New York Times, the MSNBC, NBC, ABC, CNN, and frankly, most of the largest mainstream media outlets appear to be totally communist, controlled, as most of their actions are against capitalism, against Trump, and for communism. The MSM are all anti-Trump. One independent polling agency reported that since Trump has taken office, the mainstream media has about 97% negative reports about Trump. Trump, in the mind of the mainstream media, can't do anything right. I mean, if he were to give out free bubble gum, or free checks, and free dollars, they still wouldn't like it. He can't do anything right. The mainstream media lists all things communistic and puts down all things capitalistic or Christian. They foment the difference in races, trying to start a race war. They are quick to call Republicans or Christians names such as racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it. That's a Hillary Clinton quote, if you didn't recognize that. Many protesters are recruited, trained, and paid by communists or their sympathizers. Now let's talk about the difference between communism and socialism. This is my opinion. This is the way I would describe the difference between communism and socialism. Communism is for violent overthrow to convert a nation to communism, whereas socialism is for a peaceful, gradual conversion to communism. Communism is the equal distribution of poverty, whereas capitalism is the unequal distribution of wealth. Communism forces the rich to give to the poor. Capitalism encourages all people to give to the poor. Communism is for removing all religions. Capitalism encourages freedom of worship to all people. The difference between communism and socialism: communism forces people to work in the job that the state chooses, whereas capitalism encourages people to find a job they like that they can excel in. Communism is more about hate, control, and poverty. Capitalism is more about love, freedom, and prosperity. Communism has infiltrated the Democratic Party, whereas capitalism mostly resembles the Republicans, although evil is present everywhere. The Republicans are experiencing a slight return to Christianity. I might add that all of America is returning a very slight return to Christianity. Communism, whereas, is mostly atheism. Capitalism is mostly Christianity. For example, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren push for a socialist America. Most Americans want capitalism and Christianity. Praise God. Now let's talk about the phrase, Russians will bombard the nuclear missiles in America. Obama kicked out some Russians. The Russians, conversely, kicked out about 455 or so American diplomats. In other words, we're kind of going at it right now. We're kind of in a mild Cold War right now. It's actually not very cold. You remember Trump kicked out 60 Russians from Seattle, stating they were too close to our submarine base. And of course, the Russians turned around and kicked out 60 Americans. Reports say the largest American stockpile of nuclear weapons is actually located in Seattle. The Russians kicked out 60 American diplomats. Then 12 Russians were indicted for election tampering in America. Trump placed some more sanctions on Russia. And Nikki Haley then came out and said that more sanctions were coming toward Russia, though we have not seen them yet. These sanctions reportedly are against Putin and some of his rich business buddies, specifically taking down part of their wealth. In other words, it's not just an attack on Russia, it's an attack on Russian leadership directly. The Russian bear continues to grow angrier and stronger. Putin announces he has new nuclear weapons incapable of being shot down by anyone. Putin demonstrates that he has a new nuclear weapon. Trump also counters with an American demonstration of our weapons being fired. Now let's talk about God will raise up China, Japan, many of the nations, and they will defeat the Russians. Well, Trump taunts NATO weapons need to pay your 2%. Military defense and more nations, in fact, are now paying up. That's a good thing. NATO is preparing for World War III. Russia and China continue to become and build the largest military buildup in at least that I've seen in my lifetime. Russia and China are, in my opinion, openly preparing for World War III. Russia is friending Turkey, Syria, and indirectly Iran and North Korea. As you recall, Russia offered to mediate between the USA and the People's Republic of North Korea. America is friending France, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Israel, China, and South Korea, Saudi Arabia, meaning the war lines of who's going to be fighting against this and who's going to be fighting against them are in the process of being drawn. Now let's talk about China. As you recall, Trump pulled out of the TPP, which was angering the Asian nations. Well, why not? I mean, they were taking advantage of us through that, so says Trump. China owns about 100%, you probably don't know this, of 4 of our largest banks, plus large blocks of land and also many other businesses in America. These days, much of America is owned by the Chinese. China holds ownership of large blocks of the U.S. government property as a collateral for a loan. Probably don't know that either. Trump made good friends with President of China. America and China know that they need each other. China needs America more than America needs China, in my opinion. China has spent billions of dollars, billions, building up its very large military. Again, it's preparing for World War III. Might not know that, but that's what it is. China has stolen the business secrets and thus the money-making power of many American businesses. China is not clean-handed, not a good-hearted nation. Now, let's talk about, will America fall in 2020? It's been 400 years since November the 11th of 1620 when the Mayflower Compact was signed, in which our forefathers signed making an agreement with God to form a new nation, quote, for the furtherance of the Christian faith. 400 years. 400 years. Then it's been 40 years since God first spoke the judgment to Dmitri, saying, you're going to America to give them a message from God. Meaning, a 40-year countdown began in 1980, and it is concluding also in 2020. Now, let me make this clear. I'm not saying that America is going to fall in 2020, but I am willing to say that God's hand of protection is probably going to be removed in 2020, meaning that God may be saying, America, after 2020, you're on your own. As you recall, Jerusalem will be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So there is a time that God's attention is going to turn from the Gentiles and will turn back to the Jews. And in my opinion, that's probably on about or associated with World War III, maybe the beginning, maybe the conclusion. But someplace in there, God's attention is going to turn from the Gentiles back to the Jews. Personally, I think America may have more time than just another year or so or two. But that depends on the sins of America. So in summary, when Dmitri was told the fall of America will start with an internal revolution started by the communists, some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government will be busy with internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, and 2 other countries will attack and defeat America. Then God will raise up China, Japan, and many other nations. They'll go against the Russians. They'll defeat the Russians. Now, in summary to that point, I think the internal revolution has started. People are now fighting against each other in small pockets against the government. Russia is growing stronger and more angry. Cuba is just as much an enemy today as ever and will love to participate in an attack to take America down. Nicaragua, Central America are not friends, but they're not mortal enemies yet either. Mexico has always been jealous of America, still wants the land back America took from her a long time ago, and still wants it returned, and is growing angrier toward America, and one day soon would be happy to participate in an attack on America. Mexico has been participating with our enemies for years to bring America down. Mexico basically wants to be America. China wants the wealth of America and openly states it wants to dominate the world. NATO is a jealous friend, happy to take our money, but one day will, I believe, come to our aid when we are attacked. In conclusion, America's in trouble, brothers and sisters. She has fallen off the side of a cliff, knows she can't hold on to the railing much longer. She's clinging to this railing, which is keeping her from falling, but is afraid to call for help because she's afraid her friends will come and kick her fingers, causing her to fall rather than to pull her up to safety. Americans' only hope is a mass cleanup or revival of our leadership, government, education, businesses, and homes. But America still makes the error thinking, oh, we're not so bad, and we can fix ourselves, and we're unwilling to admit that we have a problem. America is unwilling at this point to turn to the only solution, and that's to Jesus. America still has some time, in my opinion, but very little, and that little is determined by our lives and the percentage of righteousness as it is compared to sin. And right now, America has been weighed in the balances and found wanting. When Trump leaves office, in my opinion, that's probably the strongest hand holding us on the rail, and that's going to be gone, and probably our fall will happen swift thereafter. That's my opinion. Now, I also recommend you get some information. I love this DVD, Revelations on Revelation. I think it's an awesome DVD. And I tell you all about it. Jesus is not the primary message of Revelation. What is the morning star? That's an awesome revelation. The fact that Enoch and Elijah are not the two witnesses. The final answer to the rapture question. Definite proof America is in Revelation. What is America's future? 7 signs spot the Antichrist early. Are there 2 judgments? The revelation didn't stop, so I had to turn around and make another DVD called Kings and Priests. And it answers the question, are all saints kings and priests, or are some kings and some priests? Also, what's the difference between kings and priests? God the Father sits on the throne. Where's Jesus set? I'm talking about in the New Jerusalem. Many other things. I just also made the newest DVD called 17 Secrets in the Feasts and the Trumpets. And I think this is the best DVD I ever made. Then I thought Revelations on Revelation was the best DVD I ever made until I made this one. But this one talks about the coronation of Jesus, secrets in the feasts and trumpets, the barley and wheat harvest, very, very important, feast revelations in the last 7 months, and the 3 best New Testament and 3 best Old Testament verses on the rapture. It'll also explain this chart you're looking at, which is talking about the 7 months that the 7 feasts run over, and I explained that, and I tied that in with some things. I also explained this chart, which is talking about the 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 vials. Excellent understanding when you get it. All of that in these DVDs. We also had Bree Keaton in to make a DVD called Is Trump Our Patrick Henry? You can get both DVDs, 17 Secrets in the Feasts and Trumpets, and Is Trump Our Patrick Henry, for a gift for $45. Matter of fact, if you go to prophecyclub.com, they'll tell you all of the different gift offers that we have going right there. We also had Adam Johnson in. I thought he made an excellent 3 DVD set on King James are the 400 counterfeits. Which ones is correct? If you haven't asked Jesus into your heart, you're running out of time. Jesus is not in a manger anymore. He's not a skinny guy that has been nailed to some cross someplace. Right now, he's sitting on a throne in heaven. But one of these days, he's not going to be Prince of the Kings of the earth anymore, as he is now. One of these days, he's going to return on a white horse as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And in the evening and in the morning, he will destroy all of the tares, all people on earth that have not received him except the nations. And then we'll go into 5 days of atonement, 5 days of judgment. And at the conclusion of that, whoever's name is not written in the book of life is cast into the lake of fire except the nations. It gets a little complicated. But the point is, if you want to have eternal life, follow these scriptures I'm talking about. Ask Jesus into your heart. Stop sinning, repent, and turn to Jesus. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless.